If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome to the show tonight. It's Monday. Monday again. Monday of a three-day week for California Haunts Radio. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here, and I've got a great show lined up. Again, I was thinking about what to do with this show tonight over the weekend, and I thought, you know what? We did that great show on Wednesday where you guys had a lot of questions about what we did, what California Haunts team does in the field as a team, and it seemed to go over pretty well. And there were other questions where you were wondering about our psychic team. Our psychics and mediums that work with us. And I thought I would bring one of them on to talk with you guys, to tell you about what they do, because she can explain it a lot better than I can. And to give you a little introduction to Stefanie Paige-Belson, she has been with me for a long time. And she actually helped me, along with Trish Dolis, actually helped me put together the protocols that this team follows when we're out working with residential clients. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show tonight. We are the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, www.californiahaunts.org. And this is California Haunts Radio at californiahauntsradio.com. I keep forgetting what's what because the two are so close. Again, we are 40 strong up and down the state of California. We've got people in Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and a couple people out in Hawaii. So if you ever need paranormal help, look us up, and we'll get out there to help you out. In the meantime, let's get the show on the road with Stefanie, and let me call her up. Hello.
Oh, hi. I'm trying. It says get good lighting so you look your best. I'm like, whatever. I just came in from getting my mom settled in from the hospital, so I just rushed in, and I was lucky enough to get on in no time at all. So how are you, darling?
I'm good today. Spent the day on the phone talking to a potential client, which I'm going to call you about after the show.
Nice.
And just doing the yard work and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah. You guys got to remember, with COVID, we haven't been doing a lot. We've just been kind of in and taking emergency cases involving children and stuff like that, and kind of sticking to ourselves. And it looks like with the Delta variant, we're going to keep doing that for a while, as long as things, until things settle down.
Yeah, I've been working on Zoom a lot with people, so it kind of helps to connect that way.
Why don't you tell them about yourself and what a medium like you does, an evidential medium?
Yeah. Okay, so evidential mediumship requires a certain kind of mentoring and training that helps us to sort of narrow down what I would call evidential accuracy. And I liked it because I've worked as an intuitive and a healer with kind of a medical background. So working with people that had either physical problems or like stress-related trauma, those kinds of things. And so I was always very interested in developing my intuition for those purposes. And we're going back 35 years. And so I was approached by a pretty well-known medium, especially on the East Coast, and she happens to be related to me, who said, you need to do this training. And she was kind enough to mentor me and help me through in kind of in the spiritualist tradition. So, and there's some, it took me about 4 years to get through that mentorship. And I appreciated it because it sort of followed along with protocols that I would say are similar to, where the criteria ends up speaking for itself, because I really wanted to be objective about what it was I was perceiving.
Mm-hmm.
Because as mediums or psychics, people that have that capacity, I think everybody does, but I think anyone that feels they're getting messages or intuitive messages, there's always a tendency to doubt oneself. And this was a way for me to be methodically trained, to trusting myself, but also being completely objective. For instance, if I go into a location, there are protocols that I follow that Charlotte and I work together to hopefully bring to a team, and it's the same as the scientific methodology that you would follow for anything that you're trying to make a hypothesis about, right? So
Yes.
I hope to bring that into an investigation, but also to my own personal methodology of working.
When you talk about your abilities, I was telling everybody how, we have psychics on the team, or mediums on the team, that have different types of abilities. What type of ability do you have? Do you see things? Do you?
I would say that I'm more of a mental medium. And as my evidential mediumship, training and mentorship evolved, I developed more of kind of like a clairvoyance, where I do see things. I do see things and take note of things around me. But there are those mediums that have like a vision of an apparition or a disembodied spirit of whatever type, and they have them as a fully formed, solid being, and that's not what I usually experience. Although I have had experiences like that when I was young, and but one of the things that I do is I utilize the mental mediumship, so I hear words and I get colors, and so it's kind of a clairsentience, I guess you would call it. But the evidential mediumship specifically focuses on bringing evidence of continued consciousness after death, and so we're really communicating with someone's passed away loved ones, and really working as mediators between those beings that are no longer, the human beings that are no longer in body, and serving as a go-between to bring messages back and forth. But before I can do that, I give information about the way they passed. I give information about the family, or just whatever comes. And sometimes I get a great connection, and sometimes I don't. But to be able to work as an evidential medium, you have to kind of have a certain percentage of accuracy. And so bringing that into the paranormal realm, it's very much the same. And so whatever impressions I get before, when I do an opening, before I get to the location, I write all that down. And the reason it's important to write it down, and also I often work with an apprentice or somebody, even my ex-husband is very intuitive, and I've worked with him, and I say, hey, you write everything down and I'll write everything down, and don't show me. And that was one of the things that I hope to bring to the team, is that I think everybody has capacities, but I've been on teams before where people are talking to each other about, oh, I'm seeing this and I'm feeling that, and the occupants of the house are there, and that's a big no-no to me in terms of ethical responsibility. So I'm utilizing those same kinds of checks and balances, going in cold, as cold as I can to a place, and then weighing it against other information. So let's say, for instance, you, Shar, as somebody who brings the case into onto the team, you're the one who takes in all the information. And so I don't like knowing any of that, as you know. I like to just, as much as I can, go in cold and not be influenced. So that's kind of how I work. I get colors, sounds, names, letters, all of the things that you sometimes see in a mental medium. And I don't like to say that I'm only a mental medium, because I do get bodily sensation, kinesthetic input, that kind of data. So I work as a detective.
Okay.
That's kind of how I put it together, because it doesn't all come at once sometimes, right?
Right.
And I hope to, have the support of whoever I'm working with over the course of a case, to keep me in the dark as much as I can, but also give me the encouragement to say, yep, just keep going or whatever, but to try to be really objective.
Well, what helps too, guys, when we're out in the field like that, I kind of skimmed on this last week, was that you see this stuff on TV where they're sitting there on the bed or whatever, and there's this whole "are you a man or a woman" thing and all this. That's a waste of time. I mean, you're there, you've got so many hours to work with the client. You got to start getting things in line and going, and that's where a medium comes in to help, because she can tell you that Stefanie can tell us if it's a male or female that we're talking to, which makes it a hell of a lot easier. Just like if it's a kid, if it's somebody from the 1800s, you're certainly not going to put a cell phone in front of them and say, "Here, you know what this is, blah, 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 blah." You're not going to do that. You're going to want to have a trigger object from that time period so that it gets their attention. I've seen a lot of teams fumble that way out in the field, and it's not good. Not good. And that's where people, mediums like Stefanie come in.
So sometimes what I'm doing is, if we're getting this far down the line, and I might give you some information, I always try to also hold that back from large portions of the team, and maybe just work with one or two people and see what other people are getting for corroboration. I really like that. I like that, the objectivity that it sort of creates, and then putting the work together to bring it back to the client. But also, I'm communicating with this entity, because sometimes they are holding themselves back. They're not showing everything to me. They're not giving me everything. So I'm also working as kind of a mediator, a counselor, because usually there's some trauma imprints. Not always, but if it's an active location, that's sort of what I found. I'm getting great thunder. I don't know if you can hear
thunder. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
hear that thunder. I'm jealous.
We're getting thunder.
Well, also along that line too, the deceased person may not. There may be something about your personality that they don't like. No, I don't mean you, but I'm just saying there may be somebody else on the team that they feel more relaxed with. So when somebody else is getting impressions, and that's why we have the team, while they're walking around, they're taking notes. It doesn't matter who it is; they're taking notes if you're getting any feelings or anything. Because then we sit down at the end of the day and we look at all these notes and we compare everything to see what Stefanie got, what they got.
Yeah, and I think that that's helpful. I think that it creates an egalitarian situation, and I've just seen so many crapshoots where everybody's a psychic on a team.
Yeah,
and I have just a lot of respect for consciousness and the way the mind works. So I think that we can apply the same kinds of protocols that we're seeing building in the field around objectivity to how our minds, our consciousness, our soul impressions work. I think that we can do the same thing there.
Well, again, like you say, as far as the team making comments during the investigation, that is bad for the client. So one of the policies we try to follow doesn't always work, because you get some.
I'm sorry.
You get some wild stallions that want to do their own thing. You know how it is. But one of the policies we like to follow is that if you do get a feeling or a sensation, do not say anything, and again, jot it down, write it down, or mark it. Go quietly in the other room if you're carrying a digital voice recorder, and just talk into the voice recorder and say what you felt and what time.
Because we're responsible also to the people that we're trying to help to calm the situation, because I've found just over the course of time that there are a lot of these synchronicities or resonances with the human beings that are on site. There might be similarities. That's why this entity is able to really come through, whether it's a trauma imprint with the living occupant, or there's just some simpatico happening sometimes. And so that's often what I'm trying for, is to heal something. And I've found a lot of times that when we bring in people and we're frightening the homeowner or the place that has called us in, we're freaking them out. It's not doing us any good, and it's not doing the discarnate entity. Because I've worked with non-human energies, sometimes thought forms, sometimes land-based phenomenon or beings. So we want to create a calm environment. And so that's where I try to mediate that. And that's why I bring that into the team, because we might have some really solid intuitives or psychics, but we've got to kind of be cohesive and calm things down for the folks. And there's also a lot of, like I said, there can be a lot of trauma just created from the activity and the haunting itself, whether it's brand new to the people or somebody's had these experiences all their life. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is rein that in to something that people can digest.
And as I said on Wednesday, sometimes when I'm using the questionnaire, because we have an extensive questionnaire that we use, sometimes they don't always tell us the truth either about what's been going on in the house. Stefanie is really good at making people relax enough that she gets the information out that I don't.
Yeah, and that's where that that kind of serving in a spiritual counselor role is helpful, because there's probably, I just let people know there's nothing I haven't seen when it comes to human behavior and the human condition.
I think that's on my end. Just wow, hang on, guys. I don't know if you can hear me. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. Are you back?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost the cameras for a couple minutes there.
Yeah, so I think that just putting people at ease and bringing the temperature down is really important for any situation. And then we can find a solution. We can come to a problem solution based kind of formula going forward. I mean, that's my goal. I'm of course very interested in having my own questions answered. And I think for a team, this is one of the things that I often ask a team, or even people that own a site, a historic site, or a house. What are their objectives? Like, and what are their beliefs about this realm? Because I don't want to support confirmation bias on the part of anybody who's involved in solving a problem. We've got to, again, be objective. Even though I'm out there in the cosmos doing this work, I still have to stay grounded and objective when it comes to people who are charged emotionally, frightened, or been traumatized, whether they're living or non-living.
I don't remember if you worked on this case, but the one that sticks out in my head is the lady that was the Jehovah's Witness.
Sounds familiar, but you'd have to go further.
The one out in North Highlands that we did, and remember she had stuff. There'd been I think a murder at her house, I think, and she was trying to wrap her head around it because they don't believe in that stuff.
Right. I do remember this. Yeah.
What do you do in a case like that?
Well, again, I would serve as a mediator of information, like feeding new information to a person whose beliefs are so solidly based. I mean, at some point, there's nothing you can do. And I can say that to a person with certainty, like, I mean, if you think you have a paranormal problem, then a paranormal solution might be helpful. I mean, they believe in Jehovah. They believe in God. That's a non-living entity. I mean, that's the path I'd go down, and just talking about it. And I'm the first person to say, I don't know everything that there is to know. None of us do. And so, I mean, that's how I might handle something like that. But I mean, how did we get there in the first place? There's a problem, right? So there's got to be my job would be to find a link between how did we get here? You know, like, if you don't believe this is happening, then what are we doing here? How can I help? What can I do? I mean, there might be something else we can do, right?
Right.
We might be able to find some in-between solution if somebody is not interested in evidence, because that's sometimes the case. Everybody, I mean, gosh, people love evidence, and I don't really call it evidence. What would I call it? I would call it data, or gosh, I guess I'd call it just information or data, because to me, there's enough information a lot of times to go with what the easiest solution is. I mean, to me, a lot of times the easiest solution is whatever's happening in the physical realm. We eliminate all that, right, with our questionnaire, and with just serving as a counselor to somebody, asking a lot of questions, being compassionate, being objective. And then the next thing, if they've got a lot of inexplicable activity, we got to deal with that and look at what's happening. And so gathering for us the data, if it doesn't fit neatly into a physical box, then we go to the next thing, which is the spiritual detective work, and using our equipment, our technical equipment. And what we're doing out there, we're for the most part, we're measuring the electromagnetic spectrum with different tools. That's all we're really doing. And we're seeing how much we can collaboratively bring that data together. And I'm just one little piece if I'm working as a psychic medium in that picture.
Well, this is what I told everybody. I said, you know, it's not like it is on TV. It's not a game to go out. There's a lot of groups that are just going out to say a house is haunted, and you can't do that. If you're going to go out and do something and do residentials where families are in a house, they're scared, you know, they got stuff going on. Your job is to be a detective and figure out just what the hell's going on. That's your job. And if you get a group out there that doesn't want,
and even if we
go ahead.
Yeah. Even if we find that there's very little in the way of what we would call anomalous activity, we can still be helpful and have resources and refer. And that's a sensitive thing, you know, it is. And my hope is to treat people really compassionately, with respect for whatever they're dealing with. And I think that, getting to the bottom of what's really happening is important. Like, I've been on investigations where, how do you bring to someone that they're an agent of psyche activity? How do you bring that? I think that most of the time when people call us in, they're somewhat versed. Otherwise, they would never even think of us as a solution, would they? But still, that's another level entirely. So I have to be, I think, respectful and careful.
Well, you know, the TV shows have kind of made things a lot harder for what we do too, because everybody's a paranormal investigator. You know, everybody that thinks they have activity in their house has a digital voice recorder, and they're recording it, or they'll set up cameras in their house. And then when they realize there's something actually there, that's when they call us, because they don't know what to do with it. They have the tools to look for it, but they don't know what to do afterwards. And so a lot of the time, the calls that I get, it's always, like I said on Wednesday, it's always a demon. And it's not always a demon. You know, it's not always what it is. And then you have to take the time to convince people that it's not demonic.
Yeah, and it takes picking through methodically all of the evidence and using all of our intuitive capacities, and our objectivity both, you know, and One of the things that I like is getting historical evidence as well, having somebody on the team that's always been very helpful to me. At the end, as we're analyzing what I've gotten, what people have gotten through ITC or response through measuring whatever kind of electromagnetic phenomenon, whatever tools you like to use. There's so many now. And putting it all together, these yeses and nos on either side, and trying to narrow it down. And I think that a lot of times not a lot of times, but many times when I've been on a case, the occupants or the owners of a property have a portion to play in this storm of how it all has lit up. Because you can go into a place that has never had any activity. Now I might get imprints and I might get stuff going all the way back to like really ancient times. Like, everybody thinks it's a Native American burial ground. Well, I've been to those places, and sometimes that is where it began. But people have been on a property after difficult events or land-based elemental forces, and nothing's happened for them. So I like it when we have a good historian. And I've only worked on a couple of teams that have solidly good historians that are dedicated, because let's face it, this is a labor of love. It takes a lot of dedication to actually do the work. And I don't think I would ever call anybody really lazy on paranormal teams. I'm just saying it takes a lot of resource, your own personal time, your dedication to being ethical, your dedication to developing your skills, and to learning the technology, to understanding what kinds of tools you're using to put a picture together of a haunting or anomalous activity somewhere.
I think a good example of the dedication is that usually around the first of the year, you'll see a bunch of teams crop up online in your area. I mean, I'm talking like 15, 20 teams. And by the end of the year, there might be 5 or 6 teams left.
Yeah.
Because they go in thinking it's going to be like it is on TV, and then they realize how much dedication and work it is.
It's so much work. And one of my least favorite things to do, which I've had to do a bunch of times, is go over evidence or data on a screen or audio. It's not my favorite thing to do, but one of the things that I've always advocated for the teams that I've worked with, and I've worked as a free agent a lot of times with a bunch of different teams. And I remember in the beginning, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, people would be very competitive about, you can't be on this team and be on this team. And I'm just like, look, I just do what I do. And I'm seeing more of that, this like lightening up with those of us that come in to do, to open up and give a reading. Take it or leave it. It's okay. But when I would work on teams where there was lots and lots of review of the information, that is freaking dedication. I will tell you that right now. And I've done it, but it's not my favorite. Oh, so a lot of times I've said to teams, hey, there has to be a review team. It can't just be the team leader or one other person that's only tech and that's all they do. You got to help each other for these teams to survive.
It can get insane. I mean, we can use up to 9 cameras per investigation. And if we're there, say 5 hours on the investigation, that's 45 hours of review.
Yeah. So people have to be really dedicated and willing to work together, support each other on a team. That has always been, what I've advocated. I haven't always been able to go through the review, and I'm just really honest about what I can offer and what I can't offer. But as I said, people really need to work together and get their predisposed ideas out of the way about what it really means to work on a team and what it means when you come to a place to take in the objective information. Like, I don't say I'm skeptical, and I don't say that I'm doubtful. I like to stay in a place of kind of equanimity, right in the middle. Like, I just don't know. I just don't know. That's what I can say when I go into a place. And even after I leave, I don't know. I will let the information as it is brought together speak for itself, and then come up with what I think is a solution with the rest of the team.
And then even if if I'm watching the video afterwards and I see something on the screen, I'll take a screenshot or a copy of it, and I might send it to Stefanie, or I might send it to a couple other people on the team to get their opinion to see what they think. It's not only going to be, hey, I think this is paranormal. It doesn't work that way. It goes through full review before we release it as any kind of evidence. And then after the investigation's over, I sign the paperwork because we give the client paperwork and go over it with them. And then whoever the medium on duty for that investigation also looks it over and signs the paperwork.
Yeah, and I think that is what it takes, is a cooperative effort. Any human endeavor, to me, that is worthwhile. Yeah, people work together and they keep their hardcore opinions in check until everything's brought together.
Absolutely. Now we did a case, and I'm not going to say where. I'm going to say Northern California. I'm not going to mention names on these things.
Okay.
But the young lady that was living, I think it was in a condo or an apartment. The young lady that was living in this apartment, and you were able to sort this out because when I went out in the initial prelim, she lied to me. She had these pictures, if you remember these prints.
Yeah.
And she would see things on the prints, things coming up behind the prints and whatnot. How did you get the information out of her to find out that, tell people about
there were some other issues? I don't know. I just think that I spent some time talking with her, and I wouldn't say challenging the ideas, but at least I think I just spent some time talking with her. And as I said before, I really like people to know that there is nothing in the spectrum of humanity that I have not seen, or much of my sensitivity toward other people comes from my own path, my own traumatic experiences, or the traumatic experiences of people that I love. So I really do have a lot of compassion, and I try to be open to talk about anything. I mean, sometimes, whether there's like a mental balance issue, if there's substance misuse issues, a background of trauma in somebody's past, it's easy for me to talk about. So people, I think, once they know that there's nothing off the table, I think they're willing to talk about it, because I can talk freely from my own experience, or those that I love, or patients that I've worked with in my private practice. And so nobody's totally unique in their trauma, that they're alone. I want them to know that. So I think that is how that information came up. I think there was some substance self-medicating and trauma background and mental wellness issues. Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just spent some time chatting, because this is a human being who's suffering. I mean, whether it is, and I think that suffering does open us up to forces. This is, putting myself out there, but this is what I do. It opens us to forces that are destructive sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I found in my integrated healing practice, that I've discovered that those energies kind of tend to attract.
And you ended up referring her over to some places, right? Because that's something we do too. Is we'll give referrals.
Yeah, for sure. If there's something that's out of my wheelhouse, and that happens a lot. I have a very diverse background, but I only kind of specialize in two very small areas. And because I've been doing this a long time, I know a lot of folks in the mental wellness field. I know a lot of folks in, and I just like to qualify that all as trauma-based. Mm-hmm. It is almost always some variant of trauma where somebody is struggling with their mental balance. I know that there are chemical influences that, when we talk about organic brain stuff that is diagnosable in the DSM or whatever, but more often than not, somebody's carrying something difficult. And it doesn't have to be like the most horrific abuse you've ever heard of. It can be just ongoing everyday life that can wear someone's resilience down, So I think just talking about it, that's the long answer.
That's why I told you guys when I go out and do the prelim and even the initial phone interview, I'm listening to what the people are saying and how they say it. And then when I get out and take a look around at the prelim, I can pretty well tell who I'm going to send out as far as my mediums go on these cases. Because you can tell, I mean, I interview people for a living. And I watch body language and all that. So I can tell if it's something that we can normally handle, or if I have to bring what I call the specialist out, which would be Stefanie. Stephanie's my specialist. And so then I'll get done with the interview, we'll do the whole thing, and I'll call Stefanie and go, look, I have this person here, and I think you can help them more so than anybody else on this team. And that's what I was telling you guys, that I have certain people that I will send out on different types of cases, and Stefanie is my go-to specialist.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I like to bring a little bit of everything, but when it comes to relating to human beings and making a resolve to something that is really complicated or disturbing, I also think that the resolution of a situation takes care as well, because there are people that, with the best of intentions, go in and do a clearing or a blessing, and it's not as easy as a one-time shot. I will tell you that. It's sometimes very methodical. I've had to bring in other mediums or other energy workers with me to sort out the layers of the issues, and maybe refer people out to get some kind of mental health support, because like I said, the activity can be traumatizing, and it can re-trigger old fight or flight kinds of patterns in the occupants of the house or the people that own the business. So all of those things help to resolve. I have to bring in, sometimes it'll be a Catholic priest, or another time it'll be like a mighty elder, like or a psychotherapist, or whatever the case needs, because those discarnate entities need work, and so do the people in the location. They need work and support.
We had that case out in Citrus Heights that we did with that young couple that had the baby. Remember that one? And he had car parts or whatever it was from his father or his uncle. And not
right,
only
and I took my apprentice out with me. That one.
Yes.
That one was wild, and
that was a double, like you're talking about, where we had an entity plus the people had their own issues.
Right, and they were like perfectly high functioning individuals, but nonetheless, there was a lot of transitions happening in their life, so that can open you up when there's a lot of change. And I mean, like just having a new baby, that is huge. You've got all the hormonal changes, and then the psychological adjustment to being responsible for another human being. Dad and mom are both feeling that. So yeah, that was actually one of the last times I went out in the Sacramento area. That was probably my last thing with you, and that was a great case. I don't know how that ended up, but it was they had a lot of activity, but they were just a joy to work with. They were so just like willing to do whatever it took.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the last year a lot of us went out and did stuff. That was the last active year for a lot of people before the world turned upside down.
Right.
Yeah. But we've done
and I'm seeing Go ahead.
No, go ahead. We do this all the time.
I'm just
guys.
seeing a lot. I'm getting a lot of. So I worked remotely over the last year for this kind of work, and even with some of my patients for stress management and working with somatic awareness, being aware of the body and calming things down. You can do this on Zoom. The other part of my practice, it's much better to be face to face with another person attuned to them. But I did learn a lot this year working remotely with folks because this evidence, this activity is non-local. It's like you can tap into it. It's a possibility. And that's where that training, the evidential training, that I was so lucky to have a mentor that is like a well-known, renowned psychic medium. So she just really helped me a lot to refine that. But yes, you're right. But I've seen an increase in people really needing help and support when it comes to just physical, lifestyle wellness, and paranormal activity. Both.
I think it's because they've been home all this time. I thought there was going to be a big surge for paranormal activity because people were home all the time, where before they don't notice it as much because they're not home. They're busy going about their lives, but they're home now, so they're going to notice it more. But we're just starting, now that everything's opening up again, our team's just this team's just starting to get calls again to get out and do stuff.
Interesting. I think people were just really hanging on for dear life is my picture. Like they were just doing whatever they could to, even if they were having knocks and bangs in their house, they had to get online and go to work every day or school their children or whatever. You know what I mean? They were just carrying a heavy load. So maybe they didn't have time to make a call, or they were afraid.
Do you think the TV shows have created, I'm not going to say a monster where clients are concerned, but I mean, I think that they've created a bit of I guess stigma, because everything is negative on TV.
Well, there's a couple of shows that are not so negative, which I really like. And I think that they're doing a good job. Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, I think they do a real service. I like the way they work. I mean, I have a lot of respect and admiration for all those teams that are on TV because they paved the way for people to start talking about it. But I do think what it has created is a boogeyman in every closet. That's all. And that, I mean, whatever, if I have to go out on a call like that, or I take a phone call and I do a preliminary intake, I get a pretty good reading on what is necessary before even going out.
See, I like, I'm not into the shows as much anymore because I do enough of that stuff, But I do watch Paranormal 911.
Oh, is that the one where like the firefighters?
Yeah, the firefighters and the police.
Very cool.
Because I figure, that's what they do. They're there to observe.
They're trained to observe.
Yeah, if you're going to get decent stories out of anything, it's going to be that, I tend not to watch the programs. I only watch GA because of the equipment.
Oh yeah, they always have fun equipment. And you know what? One of my favorites is Bill Chappell. I don't see much of him anymore, but when it comes to the equipment and his particular objectivity as a researcher, I like that. Yes. I like his objectivity as a researcher, and I think that we need more of that.
Exactly.
And also, when I mentioned a shout out to Amy and Adam, I think that they're really going with their gut, and they do it in a way that is very respectful. They're checking in with a well-known psychic medium. I just like the way they work, and it's completely not completely, but they don't use a whole heck ton of equipment all the time. They're using that kind of detective unraveling methodology that I think is important. It takes some time to get to the answers.
Well, going back to the equipment, we don't have all that high techy stuff. I mean, we've got the the X-Cam, with the little stick
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's all basic equipment. And I know I've gone out on prelims where people were disappointed because
Yeah,
they
I
seem to have all
understand
the junk.
that. Everybody likes toys, right? And
Yeah.
we think that we're getting the whole story. We think we're getting confirmation, and it's just one piece. And it is helpful. I totally agree with that, and I think we've come a long way with what's possible. But even when we're using that equipment, like I think of what originated as the Estes method, and I don't know that it's called that on all the programs anymore. But I've seen people using the noise
Right.
canceling, and then the white noise or the scanning. I think that's a marvelous way to tap into something that goes beyond just technology
Mm-hmm.
and it creates objectivity. This kind of blind response. I think that's super cool, and that's one of the things that I have utilized in investigations.
I agree that there's some equipment out there that is great. I think that X-Cam, if it's used properly, if you work with a medium with it,
Yeah.
I think it's a great piece of equipment. But you
Yeah, I
have
don't
to.
totally understand it. I mean, I get how it's making the measurements, but I don't always know what's a positive or a false positive. And
That's
so,
why, yeah, that's why I wouldn't write down results for it until I have a medium there. Where let's
yeah,
say you're standing there and you're communicating with somebody, and you know where they're at. Oh, they're sitting in the chair, right?
yeah,
And then we whip out the X-Cam, and sure enough, there's a
right,
stick person sitting there. Or you reach your hand out and it reaches out for you.
exactly. There has
That's
to
how.
be
That's
some, yeah, there has to be some, because I could be picking up on somebody and like a square can show up a figure.
right.
But like I said, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
But I think using it in that way to back up what's already coming through, like I wouldn't look at one of those stick figures and say, "Oh, I know for sure this is Uncle
Right.
Frank." It would be in, collaboration with a bunch of different information that's kind of weighed
Exactly.
against one another.
Like, okay, you got the, for an example of that, guys, is like I told you in the last show, you got the stick figure toy, the X-Cam, and you got digital recorders going,
Yeah,
and you might have an ITC going,
yeah,
that you're working on an ITC in the corner. Now, at least if you get 2 out of 3 collaboration, because Stephanie could be talking to the stick figure, and then we get a voice back and answer.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
we're looking for. That's the evidence we're looking for.
yeah. And I can come up with a whole probable history and communicate with several spirits on or within the vicinity and kind of narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down. But that's just one part of the total picture. Because really I have gone into places and said, yes, this is the solution that I would, with nobody else, just
Mm-hmm.
gone in to do an assessment, a reading, and make a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
But I do enjoy working with the equipment, working with a team. It's so much fun. And we can come up with really hardcore solutions to hardcore
Yes.
challenges that
Yes.
way.
Yes, that's the whole point of what we do. I mean, we're there to help. We don't charge. It's all donation for us, but we're there to help people, and that's what's important to us. That's the main thing, is to
Yeah.
help people, and it feels so good when we can get out, like that Woodland case I told you guys about last week. If we can get out to a complicated case like that, it might have taken me 3 months to figure it out.
Right.
But if
Yeah.
I can get out to a complicated case like that and figure out that it was poltergeist caused by this tumor this man had,
Yeah.
you feel so good because you've helped somebody. Or the woman in the Bay Area, I don't remember if that was you or who that was. She had a change of medication. She had Alzheimer's and they changed her medication.
Yeah. I don't
And
think it was me.
she was seeing things. She was hallucinating. And we
Yeah.
found out it was a change of medication.
Yep.
That's the stuff that makes us feel good. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Get
fine and
down to
dandy.
the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's fine and dandy to hear the voices and maybe get a picture of some kind of foggy stuff. But I mean, when it comes right down to it, when we can get to the bottom of something and make somebody's life better, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I like to, I just want to reiterate, it's
Mm-hmm.
really good to know what the objectives and biases of like, I like to know what my objectives and biases are. And so I always encourage any team that I'm working with, like, what are we doing here? Like, do you believe that already that this place is hopping with haunted activity? Because that's not going to actually help us
No.
if we can't stay in the middle. And we don't need to say that everything is can be explained away either. But we do sometimes find things that are part of what is fueling somebody's fear cycle, but they just happen to have a squirrel in the crawl space.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does feel good to sort it out and really help people that way.
I was telling them about our rat searches. When people have gone in the attic with with fluorescent lights, looking for the rat poop and stuff.
Right.
Climbing
Yep.
through stuff. You'd be surprised. I don't climb because I'm too old now, but you'd be surprised. That's why you get skinny younger members on your team.
Yeah.
You're going to shove them up through holes and send them off.
Yeah.
But that's what you do. You might even be in a crawl space under a house looking for stuff. Because a lot of times noises in the walls, stuff like that. It's rats and mice.
Yeah.
Going through those walls and stuff. I mean, that's what we have to do. We have to, like Stefanie says, we have to meticulously sort it down to where we can find answers. And then when we get to the point where we can't find any more answers, that's when we start looking at other stuff.
Yeah. And there are times when the spiritual aspects of a case are particularly difficult as well. Like an entity is bound to some other entities, or and again, my input is just a little piece of that, because we want to see who comes forward, who's in charge on the other side, what the dynamic is. And so that's how I think I can be most helpful as a psychic medium and healer. So I do some energy work in clearing spaces, but a lot of times I'm not doing that all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't handle it as a team, then I might have to go back with some other, like you said, people that were referring into the case.
And that was
Depending
the other
upon.
thing I mentioned too last week was, people want cleansings done right away. They don't. Oh, I don't want an investigation. I need a cleansing. The problem with that is we don't know what we're dealing with.
Right.
We don't know if could be if it's something like Stefanie says, something with the client, or if it is an entity, what kind of entity it is, because one cleansing does not fit all.
Yeah, and we want to do it properly. We don't want to do things that I have gone in so many times where people are in kind of a fantastical heightened state around, like they kind of like the paranormal activity.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they've done some of their own investigating, and I'm not saying it's a no 100%, because some people are like, don't do that, but it's still, we should proceed with caution.
Mm-hmm.
And utilizing everybody's skills to really, like you wouldn't go into a physically charged situation just thinking that you could wave your magic wand and suddenly this potentially volatile situation is going to go away. It takes strategizing, and you could make things worse. You jump into a firefight.
Mm-hmm.
Start waving something around. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I have trouble with on the initial phone calls with people a lot of the time, because that's what they want. They want us to jump in and start cleansing places, and I have to try and get them to back down and go, look, even if you just let us out for the preliminary, I can figure out what's going on. That's all we ask. We don't have to come for a full investigation. Yeah. Just let me do an hour preliminary. We'll see what's going on.
Yeah. And then working behind the scenes, like there have been times when, Shar, you've called me and said, what are you thinking about? And we might talk a couple times on the phone, and you might have gone out doing a preliminary and done the intake and maybe done some EVP right on and we can kind of figure out some way to give these folks a reprieve or a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because I respect that. Like some people, that's not their thing. They don't want to see all the big guns. They don't want to see the big toys.
No.
They just want a reading and a cleansing And yeah, I respect that, but you're right. We have to be safe about how we go about it.
I mean, because if we get out to a place and it turns out it involves Native Americans, well, that's a totally different ballgame altogether with doing a cleansing. You just can't cleanse it, a normal cleansing with it.
No, no, you need somebody that has expertise in that area to help make peace. I mean, yeah, when we're dealing with historical trauma of any kind, peace is what we're going for.
Have you ever run into anybody that has had generational curses or anything like that?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't quote me, but I think that they're more common than we think. And what I mean by that is we could call something a curse that somebody else might call generational trauma, but it may have started with some very first event. And I don't find that I run into any sorceresses or sorcerers, brujos, that are powerful and dedicated enough to really lay a hardcore curse. What I'm talking about is like an imprint at the moment of trauma where someone wishes ill or the hate goes on for so long. And then there's a dynamic between like one family member, another family member, or somebody outside of the family where that carries through. So that's what I mean by, I think they're more common than we think. I think that there's an intersection between human behavior and psychology and the paranormal, the metaphysical. I think that those intersect very highly. And that's what I see in my practice, where somebody's manifested something physically in their body that is part of a trauma pattern. Whether it's just a repetitive motion because they're a gardener, right?
Right.
They're doing something over and over again, and sometimes even it's thoughts over and over again that can manifest in some kind of an imbalance in the body, whether or behaviors, food compulsion, anything. I mean, that's why I go back to like this kind of standard of trauma-informed care, even as a medium, not just as somebody who works in the physical realm with people's bodies and their biographical medical histories, but it kind of all, for me, I have to consider all of the realms.
My last question for you too is something I kind of touched on the last time was demonic cases. People think that they're frequent. I haven't. I mean, maybe we've had one in 25 years or two that we've done.
Yeah.
I mean, how frequent are they?
You know what? I think that there are definitely negative forces, malevolent forces, spiritual forces that are part of our world, and attachments that are not good for us, for sure. I think that on the physical plane, we are sovereign beings. So I'm not saying that they're out of the ballpark, but the Hollywood version, I'm not so sure that. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I just have not dealt with them a lot. But that's not to say that I don't get patients sometimes that have some kind of an attachment that's negative.
Gotcha. And the question, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's it. But I hesitate at giving this kind of intemperate language too much power. I think that that's a powerful force, and I think it exists. But to speak something into being and keep working that angle can feed more fright into it. And I think even before the advent of Christianity, there were demons. There were land-based beings that were here long before, and there are, the people, I guess, think of demons as fallen angels. That's part of a spiritual tradition, a story that has weight in the world. It exists, but there are all kinds of entities. on many levels.
Absolutely.
So I just am careful about language. That's all. When it comes to any kind of attachment, people just flip out when you say attachment.
A question in the chat room goes back to the other question we had. How do you get rid of generational curses?
It takes some dedication and some work. I would say that when I'm working with someone, I do a full biographical and medical history. Before the person comes to me, though, I like to do an opening and a reading, write it down, and see how much of it is relevant to what they're bringing me, because it gives me something to set my sights on. It lets me narrow it down to where the issue has begun, or if it really has as much power as they think, or if it has less power, what the resolve is. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yeah.
You have to work on it. It's within every human being's power to do this, and none of us do it alone. But there are ways to do it for sure. But people need support in that.
Absolutely. Stefanie, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
So good to be with you, honey.
It is good. In fact, like I said, I'll be calling you shortly because I have another case to discuss with you. Okay. But Stefanie's been with me very long. She's one of my long timers. Yeah. And it's amazing because it's like anything else. We're a family. We fight. And then, we have disagreements, but we're still here, right? So, I wouldn't be able to do this without Stefanie.
Oh, that's sweet of you to say. Thank you, honey. And thank you.
Thank you so much
for bringing me out into the field and introducing me to a lot of interesting cases.
There you go. All right, I'll give you a call in a few minutes so we can talk about that case. I want to close this thing off. Thank you.
Yep, blessings.
Oh, how do people get a hold of you if they want to? I'm forgetting my
manners. My name is easy to find. Spiritual Touch Healer, Stefanie Paige-Belson. Easy to find. I have a website. I'm on Facebook. Yep.
I apologize. I forgot my manners. I got ahead of myself. Okay, Stefanie, thanks a lot.
Okay, take care, honey. Love ya.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, guys, that was fun. That was cool. So I hope you learned a little bit about how my team operates and how we go about things, because it's really important when you're out on these investigations to do the best job you possibly can. And that's not only for the clients, that's for any teams that might be listening in, because it's a lesson. It's a lesson because you're dealing with people's mental states and all that when you go out. It's not just let's go out and find a ghost. Okay, tomorrow night's show, really big show. I have a woman coming on who worked with a medium to channel Thomas Jefferson, and she's written a book about it, and it's called The Metaphysical Thomas Jefferson. And she had asked him questions about current, stuff that's going on currently, and stuff from the past that she was able to cross-verify. So she'll be on tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. PDT with me. You see the thing running along the bottom of the page there, and it's PayPal me at California Haunts. That is a PayPal where you can donate a few funds to us to keep these shows on the air and keep things going. Like I said, we are nonprofit, so everything comes out of pocket, including the internet and the and the StreamYard service to bring the show to you. So if you could find it in your heart to drop off a donation or two, that would be great. That's a PayPal me at California Haunts. My name is Charlotte. I am the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. I didn't say that in the beginning because I got ahead of myself. I apologize for the screen going blank. If you guys did see a blank screen there, I think it was probably the thunder, the thunderstorm up in the hills with Stefanie that did that. So you notice when the thunder stopped, I didn't do that anymore or something, and that's what it was. But anyway, I thank you for coming tonight, and tomorrow is another day. And like I said, tune in tomorrow, and then I have a special surprise for a show that's going to be Wednesday. It was a pre-record that I did, and I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. So thank you so much for coming, and I will see you. Let me get on the right page here. At least I didn't get in your face. Like usually I've been starting out running people's faces. I will see you tomorrow.